Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're dissecting India's rapidly shifting digital defense landscape. And honestly, these sweeping new CERT-In guidelines, they're going to affect everything from your smartphone to our city power grids. We have a lot of fascinating ground to cover, so let's get right to it.
Okay, I want you to picture this scenario. It's late 2022, and the servers of AIIMS New Delhi, literally one of India's most critical medical and research institutes, are suddenly hit by a massive ransomware attack. The hospital's entire digital infrastructure is completely paralyzed. Doctors lose access to patient records, systems just freeze, and operations are thrown into total chaos. It was a terrifying wake-up call, proving for sure that our critical physical infrastructure is incredibly vulnerable in cyberspace. And that brings us to the absolute front line of India's defense shield, CERT-In, or the Computer Emergency Response Team, India. They're the national nodal agency for responding to computer security incidents. Basically, they're the digital first responders. But right now, they're making major headlines for a totally different reason. Because, in direct response to these massive cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, CERT-In stepped up and released a set of highly strict and highly controversial new guidelines that fundamentally change how tech companies handle your data.
To really get why these rules are such a huge deal, we kind of have to look at this timeline. So CERT-In was originally formed way back in 2004, and for a long time, India's cybersecurity posture was largely reactive. Think about it. A company would get hacked, and frankly, they'd often try to hide it just to protect their stock prices, only for the stolen data to inevitably leak on the dark web months later. But after several high-profile attacks on power grids and hospitals, the government's stance drastically shifted from reactive to aggressively proactive. By April 2022, they issued these sweeping new directives. And ironically, this was just months before that catastrophic AIIMS attack we just talked about, which completely proved exactly why they were needed.
Now, these sweeping directives don't just apply to government bodies. Supervised by MeitY, that's the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, under the Information Technology Act, these rules cast a massive net. We are talking about an impact on every single tech company, every single VPN provider, and every crypto exchange operating within India's borders. The scale of this compliance mandate is truly unprecedented.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. 3 drastic new directives.
The government's mandate essentially boils down to these 3 massive new directives. We've got a 6-hour reporting rule, a 5-year VPN data logging mandate, and mandatory time synchronization. Taking them all in at a glance, you can instantly see the full scope and strategic significance here. The government isn't just asking for better security, they're demanding incredible speed, long-term traceability, and absolute uniformity from the entire tech sector.
Let's break these down, starting with the first one, the 6-hour reporting rule. Remember how we just talked about companies hiding their breaches? Well, that's no longer an option. Under this rule, any company, whether you're a tiny local startup or a massive global giant like Google, must now report a cyber incident to CERT-In within an incredibly tight window of just 6 hours from the exact moment they notice it. The strategic goal here, speed. It allows the government to instantly step in, understand the threat, and contain the digital fallout before it spreads to other networks.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the second mandate. It's a requirement for 5 years of data logging. This rule essentially kills the concept of absolute anonymity on the Indian internet. It completely forces VPN providers to store customer names, IP addresses, and detailed usage patterns for half a decade. For law enforcement, this is seen as an absolute necessity. They argue that to track down cybercriminals who hide behind anonymous servers, they desperately need this breadcrumb trail of data.
And then we have the third pillar, mandatory time synchronization. All tech companies must now sync their server clocks to the servers of the National Informatics Center, or the NIC. Just think about the logistics of investigating a digital crime. When a sophisticated hack happens across multiple companies simultaneously, having the exact same synchronized timestamp across all those different corporate servers allows investigators to accurately and seamlessly reconstruct the exact timeline of the attack. It makes sure everyone's digital clocks are ticking to the exact same second.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next focus. Section 2, the global privacy backlash.
As a direct result of these strict new rules, the industry saw some immediate fallout. Massive global VPN providers, including industry giants like ExpressVPN and NordVPN, flat out refused to log their users' data, citing their own strict no-logging privacy policies. Their response? They physically pulled their servers right out of India, which really highlights the stark divide between national regulation and global corporate privacy standards.
So this brings us to a core debate. On one hand, we've got national security. The government firmly maintains that these measures are absolutely vital to tracking down bad actors, stopping ransomware, and protecting critical digital infrastructure. But on the other hand, we have corporate privacy. Critics heavily argue that forcing companies to hoard massive amounts of sensitive user data for 5 whole years doesn't just hurt everyday privacy, it actually creates a massive, highly lucrative data honeypot for hackers to target and steal. It's a really complex friction point with very valid concerns being raised by both sides.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our next segment. Section 3. Future of Digital India.
When you look at the ultimate strategic goal, the massive advantage here is situational awareness. By forcing companies to report hacks within that super tight 6-hour window, CERT-In effectively acts as a national radar system. Think about it. If they identify a cyber attack hitting, say, a private bank, they can instantly blast out a warning to all the other banks in the country, allowing them to patch that specific vulnerability before the hacker even has a chance to strike them next. It literally turns an isolated attack into a collective defense. All right. As we wrap up our analysis, let's cement these concepts with your high-retention memory triggers. If you take away anything from this explainer, let it be these 4 pillars. CERT-In is your central nodal agency. The broader field is proactive cybersecurity. Their main goal is protecting critical information infrastructure, and it's all driven by rapid incident response, specifically that mandatory 6-hour reporting and the 5-year data logging.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely critical thought to ponder. By implementing some of the strictest digital rules on Earth, are we sacrificing absolute privacy for absolute security? Or, by centralizing all of this user data for years at a time, are we actually just creating bigger targets for hackers to go after? It's a fascinating and delicate balance that's going to shape our digital lives for decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Next time, we're going to continue our journey into the future of digital defense by exploring the mind-bending realm of unhackable communications with quantum key distribution. I'll see you then.